This week on The Other Side.
If you have anti-Australian sentiments, then get the hell out of my country.
The anti-mass immigration rallies will take place across Australia this Sunday afternoon. We'll explain all the controversy without the usual media bias. Australia expels its first ambassador since World War II after ASIO confirms Iran was behind 2 terror attacks in our 2 bigger cities. A man claiming to be a sovereign citizen kills 2 police officers in cold blood. We'll explain what a sovereign citizen is and isn't. And Brittany Higgins has a big court loss as Senator Linda Reynolds is finally vindicated. It's a huge show. Let's go. G'day Perth, g'day Sydney, and g'day Porapunka. Our prayers are with you. And g'day Australia. This is episode 424 of The Other Side for the week commencing Friday, August 29, 2025. I'm Damien Curry. The Other Side's your deep dive on the most important issues that matter in Australia and that affect us from around the world from a different perspective. Not a popular perspective in this very left-wing country of ours, but we do it anyway. We also dislike the far right on this show, so it's always fun. I like to think that despite the hysteria drummed up by most media, we're representing the good old sensible centre-right classical liberal Aussies, and I feel like we're in the majority. Maybe. Good to see some sensible decisions coming out of our government this week and sensible things happening in our courts. The horrific news that the state of Iran was behind 2 attacks in Australia is inexcusable, and it was right for the government to expel the Iranian ambassador. The first time since World War II that Australia has expelled an ambassador of any country. The ambassador himself was not linked to the attacks directly.
We have witnessed a number of appalling anti-Semitic attacks against Australia's Jewish community. ASIO has now gathered enough credible intelligence to reach a deeply disturbing conclusion that the Iranian government directed at least 2 of these attacks. These were extraordinary and dangerous acts of aggression orchestrated by a foreign nation on Australian soil. They were attempts to undermine social cohesion and sow discord in our community. It is totally unacceptable, and the Australian government is taking strong and decisive action in response. A short time ago, we informed the Iranian ambassador to Australia that he would be expelled. We have suspended operations at our embassy in Tehran, and all our diplomats are now safe in a third country. The actions of my government send a clear message, a message to all Australians that we stand against anti-Semitism and we stand against violence.
The expulsions related to information ASIO obtained on 2 arson attacks, one on a Melbourne synagogue in December and another on a Sydney cafe in October last year. The Iranian ambassador and 3 other officials have been kicked out, but Iran says it absolutely rejected the claims and says the whole thing has been driven by Australia's domestic policies. Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO, says there's links between the attacks and commanders in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. They're pretty notorious. And note that the I in IRGC stands for Islamic, not Iran, by the way. That's how a theocracy works. But it is Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Burgess says the IRGC is using what he calls cutouts, people who are criminals and members of organised crime gangs, to do their bidding. The Prime Minister says he will also designate the IRGC as a terrorist organisation. Conspiracy theories are abounding online, of course. It's hard to tell what's true and what's not these days, isn't it? The level of trust in media and government has never been so low, and they've brought this on themselves. They lost a lot of trust during COVID. Perhaps the most damaging thing to our society of all that came from COVID was that loss of trust that rightly followed the disgusting abuse of power by governments and the shoddy work of the media, misrepresenting the level of threat every single day with numbers that were a statistician's worst nightmare and a total joke. But, you know, sometimes things are just as they seem. In fact, most of the time, things are just as they seem. There's an important principle in epistemology, which is the branch of philosophy that studies knowledge, what it is, how we get it, how we know that what we believe is actually true. That principle is called Occam's razor, and it should be taught in every primary school.
The simplest explanation is usually the best one. We should look for the simplest explanations when in search of the truth. Conversely, unnecessarily complex and convoluted explanations are unlikely to be correct.
Thank you, smart-looking guy on YouTube. That's content creator Mike Gaston there. Yes, Occam's razor says that we should go with the simplest, most likely answer when we're in doubt. We should not go with the kookiest, most complex conspiracy theory that some clickbait-seeking grifter on social media can cook up in their lounge room. Again, that's not to say that the truth isn't sometimes elusive and that we shouldn't have healthy skepticism. It's just that most of the time, the truth isn't elusive. Conspiracies have happened and they do exist. But if you're starting to think that everything's a conspiracy, as I'm noticing a lot of people online are these days, it might be time to take a break from social media for a while, reset your algorithms, and go smell some flowers. Another thing we need to run a mile from is this nonsense ideology of sovereign citizenship. Another sad, lost person who thinks they're so far above the law that it's okay to kill innocent police officers tragically acted out his conspiracy theory delusions this week, ending the lives of two very good, innocent people. No, sovereign citizenship is not a thing. In fact, I had to go look it up. I'd never heard of it before. Sovereign citizenship is a belief system in which people think that they're not subject to government laws, courts, or taxes because they supposedly opt out of citizenship through various pseudo-legal arguments. They often reject the authority of the Australian Constitution, the Parliament, the police, and the courts. They sometimes amusingly claim that Australia is a corporation rather than a country, as if that means anything. They think they can declare themselves sovereign and free from government jurisdiction, and that paying taxes, holding a driver's license, or following laws is optional if they declare independence from those systems. The reality is that Australia is a country made up of people who share an agreed legal system. Our laws are made by our parliaments and they're tested and refined in practice in our courts. The laws we all live under didn't just pop out of the sky, and they can't be deemed to be worthless because of some pseudo-legalistic article you read on the internet. Our laws took centuries to evolve, and they're held together by an ongoing social contract that we have with each other. The arguments made by sovereign citizens are silly. They have zero legal basis whatsoever. Australian courts have repeatedly dismissed them as nonsense. And if you are one of these people, please don't bother contacting this show. We're simply not interested in your arguments. Australia is a country made up of people who voted for a government, and we have a culture that informs our laws, and we test those laws in our courts, and they're passed by a parliament, and that is how it works. There's no superior laws to our parliament and courts. That doesn't mean that our parliaments and courts get it right all the time. God knows we know they don't. Or that they're even good all the time. Certainly in relation to the abuse of ordinary citizens with obscene traffic fines designed only to raise revenue and hurt families, we know our parliaments and courts can be downright evil. But sorry, you're not a sovereign citizen above those bad laws and crooked government theft. In Australia, you've got to campaign against laws you don't like. You can join a political party. You can seek to change them. But you've got to abide by the Constitution and our overarching laws that we all collectively decide upon in that system, unless you leave, which is also your choice. We're very happy to announce a brand new sponsor for The Other Side. And remember that one of the best ways to support the show is to support our sponsors. SmartKits Australia is a leading supplier of prefabricated home improvement kits, so you can do it yourself, save money and hassle. SmartKits Australia is the easiest way to improve your home and build memories that last forever. Buy online, customize your way, get it built. That's the SmartKits way. Decks, patios, pergolas, flyover roofs, carports, and insulated roofing, all prefabricated, fully engineered, and delivered anywhere in Australia. You can choose from hundreds of pre-designed SmartKits on their website, or you can go custom with SmartKits' in-house design team. Every kit is engineered tough, packed smart, and delivered free anywhere in Australia. And don't worry if you're not so handy. If you need it installed, they can do that too. Their licensed builder network can get you started even faster. It's up to you. So save thousands on your own 100% Australian-made Smart Kit. Build your own outdoor lifestyles with SmartKits Australia. SmartKits.com.au, a proud sponsor of The Other Side. Something sensible happened this week, which is great. The vindication of a woman who fought to have her reputation restored and the record set straight. Former Liberal Party Minister Linda Reynolds winning her fight against a terrible accusation that was truly unfair and unfounded. Brittany Higgins had claimed on social media that her alleged rape had been hushed up by Reynolds to avoid a political scandal in the lead up to the federal election. In fact, Reynolds and her staff did almost everything they could to help and support Higgins. Linda Reynolds was so determined to clear her tarnished reputation, she mortgaged her own house to pay her legal bills. Here's how Channel 9 reported the result.
Brittany Higgins has been ordered to pay her former boss, Linda Reynolds, more than $300,000 in damages over defamatory social media posts. The former Defence Minister winning the long-running legal battle before declaring outside court there was no political cover-up of rape.
It is a great relief that my reputation has been finally and fully vindicated. Today, Justice Tottle has definitively established the truth. There was no conspiracy and there was no political cover-up of a rape.
As the Australian newspaper's New South Wales Bureau Chief Stephen Rice wrote this week, Brittany Higgins could have spared herself and Linda Reynolds the immense stress and cost of a defamation action with 2 words: I'm sorry. The slur against Reynolds and her then Chief of Staff, Fiona Brown, was all the more devastating because it was made by a young woman that they had only tried to help. Brittany Higgins had her own win and personal vindication in court when Justice Michael Lee last year found that on the balance of probabilities, it was more likely that Higgins was raped by Bruce Lehrmann than that she wasn't. It's not a standard, of course, that meets a criminal conviction of rape, but it was part of the ruling in a defamation trial brought by Lehrmann himself. The Australian Stephen Rice asks why, having been vindicated by that ruling, Higgins didn't just accept Senator Reynolds' request for an apology, but instead doubled down with offensive social media posts, amplifying claims that had already destroyed Reynolds' career and mental health. Rice reported that the judge in the case was abundantly clear. Not only was there no cover-up, but Higgins had been dishonest in alleging it. Perhaps the strongest part of the ruling this time around, have a close listen to this bit, was the judge's finding that Higgins had, quote, weaponized her story, and a vital part of the story was the false allegation that Reynolds had covered up the rape allegation. That's pretty damning stuff from the courts there. Higgins is now up for the $340,000 in damages and a legal bill for both parties' costs that would be well over $1 million, maybe even $2 million. But there is another part of this whole sad, sorry state of affairs that's really important to us as taxpayers and requires some clearing up or explanation by the current Labor government, I think, especially Minister Katie Gallagher, who was Finance Minister at the time that the award was made to Brittany Higgins and therefore had final oversight of it, even though the practice is to keep ministers out of such decisions and mainly would have been handled by the Finance Secretary. Now, the Finance Secretary does ultimately report to the Minister, of course. But here's the thing. In his ruling last year, Justice Lee found Brittany Higgins had lied when she negotiated that big multi-million-dollar workplace settlement. That money was awarded to her after just a single day of mediation. And Linda Reynolds was denied the right to appear at that mediation and defend herself. And the money paid to Brittany Higgins, the $2.4 million, was workplace compensation in a way for the way that she had been mistreated. Now, it's been found by Judge Tottle in this latest case that Reynolds' challenge to the compensation claim was soundly based, and therefore it was reasonable for the former minister to question why she was excluded from that process. So should we have forked out $2.4 million? And how was that approved and why? Andrew Bolt on his Sky News show this past Wednesday reminded us all of a Senate committee hearing back in 2021 in which Labor senators and ministers Katie Gallagher and Penny Wong were just indignant and so terribly outraged because Linda Reynolds had dared to suggest that the stress she was feeling might have been caused by the pressure of a political campaign against her.
And Labor under Anthony Albanese just grabbed and ran with this cover-up story. I mean, it's just so perfect for painting the Liberals as anti-women, and Anthony Albanese had a field day in Parliament. In fact, Labor Senators Penny Wong and Katie Gallagher, you might remember, they were famously dubbed mean girls by the late Labor Senator Kimberley Kitching, subjected Reynolds to questioning so vicious that she crumbled.
Senator Gallagher, I did answer your questions to the point that you ground me to the ground and ended up in hospital. Oh, but I'm back here. I'm answering questions. Answering questions, and I'm
assisting. That we put you in hospital.
You just
that I put you in hospital, Senator Reynolds.
You should withdraw.
Well, if
so, you're the victim. Is not Ms. Higgins. Is that what?
Order, Senator Wong. That's not
nobody
what I'm
takes pleasure in asking these questions. Nobody takes pleasure in asking these questions.
And Senator Wong. I'd like to respond to that. That was
having two senators yell at me at the same time.
I'm sorry. Well,
activists also held a women's protest outside Parliament House, howling insults to the Morrison government. And there, rising in saintly white to the microphone, was Higgins, that hero victim, rising to the lure of the TV cameras.
I don't believe people should be isolated, intimidated, and ignored after traumatic incidents.
But she wasn't. She was well looked after by her employer, it would now seem, and they made every effort to help her. Just a reminder, Katie Gallagher was the finance minister at the time that her department signed off on Higgins' multi-million-dollar payout. Although ministers are generally kept at arm's length from those kinds of decisions, so there's no political interference, and I have absolute confidence the rules would have been followed in that sense to the letter. And did you hear what Penny Wong said in that clip that Andrew Bolt played there? She said to Linda Reynolds, "Oh, so you're the victim now, not Brittany Higgins." What a low bully shot. What a mean twisting of the knife that was.
Well, if
so, you're the victim. Is not Ms. Higgins. Is that what?
Order, Senator Wong. That's not
nobody
what I'm
takes
saying.
pleasure in asking these questions.
There's a lot of questions still to be answered here, and we'll be pursuing those answers, no doubt, hopefully, throughout all media channels. Senator Linda Reynolds, congratulations on your legal and moral victory over some very nasty political games. If you like The Other Side, one of the best ways you can support us is by signing up for the products of our sponsors. And one of our best sponsors is PIA VPN, the virtual private network that stops people spying on your internet activity. It'll keep you and your family truly safe from the prying eyes of big governments and corporations without slowing down your internet speeds. And you can watch Netflix or other streaming services using your regular accounts with them as if you're viewing from any country in the world. You can sign up for less than $3 a month and get a whopping 83% off the normal price. Just go to piavpn.com/otherside to sign up and you'll get the discount. And you'll get more info on those special deals if you check it out. That's piavpn.com/otherside. If you ever needed any evidence whatsoever that the Labor Party and the left just don't understand basic economics, or more likely that they do understand it but they willingly choose to ignore it because they don't like reality and they think they can do better, we have the ingenious idea from the Albanese government to further incentivise first home buyers. The scheme is designed to help young people who are having trouble getting into the market because of the big deposits required by enabling people to get into the market with just a 5% deposit. The scheme was supposed to start next year, but they're bringing it forward 3 months. The way it'll work is that the government will basically play guarantor for home buyers up to 15% of the value of the mortgage. This will reduce the risk for the lenders, thereby allowing lower deposits and reduce the need for buyers to pay thousands in mortgage insurance. Now, there were going to be some income caps on this scheme, but they've been scrapped now, and anyone can access the scheme no matter what they earn. But there will be caps on the value of the property that they can buy. Now, this all sounds very clever in theory, but once again, it's government meddling to fix problems in our market caused by government meddling in the first place. And this is what the left do. Their answer to every problem caused by government is more government. What is it about basic supply and demand that these people cannot get through their thick heads? Our housing crisis is a supply issue. There are not enough houses being built because the cost of building houses is being jacked up by as much as 40 to 50% by government and council red and green tape. Taxation, making new residential housing developments a very unattractive investment. This protects those already in the game, who've already got investments, by jacking up the asset prices, but it keeps new investors who might build new stuff out of the game. And increased demand from population increases caused by immigration and prices have simply got to rise. So the solution to prices being too high is, as it always has been since the beginning of time, as a Year 10 economics student can tell you, you've either got to increase supply or reduce demand. So what is our Labor government doing? They're doing the exact opposite. They're increasing immigration, thereby increasing demand. And they're adding net zero costs and red tape and taxes to reduce supply. And now they want to increase demand even further by going full steam ahead with this first home buyer guarantee scheme. But it's just going to jack up prices in the long term. The government says its Treasury Department's modelling suggests that the total impact on house prices will be around 0.5% increase after 6 years. I'm sorry, the government's own model, I think we need new modelers, because a top AMP economist says it's more likely going to be 3%, and another economist told the ABC it could be 15%. Lewis Christopher from SQM Research says the scheme, combined with interest rate changes, could spark the biggest rush on housing since the GFC. And he wouldn't be surprised if the number of first homeowners doubles to around 220,000 per year thanks to this scheme. And if you don't believe him, how about one of Australia's most respected independent economists, Saul Eastlake, formerly the chief economist at ANZ Bank, who told the ABC it'd help if governments stopped doing things that needlessly inflate the demand for housing. He criticised first homeowner grants, stamp duty concessions, and excessively generous tax breaks for property investors because most investors buy properties that already exist rather than funding the construction of new ones. He's right there. We should be giving massive tax breaks to investors who step up and take some risk and invest in new builds, like zero capital gains tax on the first sale of a new build or something like that. But here's the rub. 12 million Aussies are homeowners, which makes renters and first home buyers a minority. So politicians of all political stripes are loath to do anything that makes the price of houses go down. A great way to support the other side is to support our sponsors like SmartKits Australia, the best supplier of do-it-yourself prefab home renovation kits. And it's not just carports. SmartKits do decks, patios and pergolas, flyover roofs and insulated roofing too. All prefabricated, fully engineered and delivered anywhere in Australia. And if you're not too handy, they'll install it for you too. Get onto it. smartkits.com.au.
You're watching The Other Side with Damien Coorey, Australia's best independent news commentary show, bringing you up to speed on the issues that matter most. Simply subscribe for free on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button and bell so you'll be notified whenever we post anything. And to really stay in touch, check out our independent website at othersidetv.com.au. You can sign up for free there too, or join the exclusive side and help support our show for less than $5 a month. This is The Other Side.
I've seen a lot of madness and nonsense come out of our national broadcaster, the $1.2 billion taxpayer-funded monster that is the ABC. But this week's episode of Media Watch really took the cake for irrelevance and completely missing the point. Some immigration data was released a week or so ago by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the ABS. And it showed that net permanent and long-term arrivals, what they call the NPLT, which is the government's measure of how many people are arriving in Australia to stay, in the 6 months to June 30 this year, reached a record 279,460, which if you divide it by 181, which is the number of days between January 1 and June 30, you get 1,544 per day. Okay, so that's a fact, right? 1,544. Keep that in your mind. Now, so that nobody accuses us of misleading with the data, let's be very clear about what the NPLT measures. It measures people who've never lived here, who arrive, and who've ticked their intention to stay permanently. And it also measures Australian citizens returning home after living away for more than a year. So they've been overseas for more than a year, they come back, they ticket, they're counted as well. It does not measure people returning home from short holidays abroad, though. So it is actually quite a good indicator of migration. It's not the best indicator. The best is the net overseas migration numbers, some people would say, and we'll come to that later. But the NPLT is a leading indicator that can reasonably be used to detect trends in new migration numbers. I repeat, for the ABC kids watching, it is a leading indicator which can be used to detect trends in new migration numbers, which is handy because migration numbers take a long time to come out. So here's how Sydney's 9 Media radio station 2GB reported it on their Ben Fordham breakfast show this week.
Well, we've got the latest immigration numbers. Get a load of this. Every day, Australia is taking in 1,544 new people. That's the equivalent of 5 fully loaded Boeing 787 Dreamliners.
Okay, so Ben's calculation is right, and it is the equivalent of 5 fully loaded 787 Dreamliners. But don't tell the lovies lost in their cultural groupthink echo chamber of left-wing self-righteousness at the ABC that. The ABC show that's supposed to be about watching the media for getting facts wrong decided that it didn't like the media getting the facts right in this case.
Hello, I'm Linton Besser. Welcome to Media Watch. And first tonight, the tsunami of migrants threatening to overwhelm the country, as Radio 2GB shock jock Ben Fordham explained last week.
Hold it right there, folks. I'm not letting that one go through to the keeper. There's the ABC's Media Watch doing exactly what it's supposed to catch other people out doing. Propaganda. They just smugly, quickly put down Ben Fordham as a shock jock, when all Ben Fordham is doing is presenting actual facts.
In the first 6 months of this year, we've had 279,000 arrivals. That's more people than the population of Hobart. 5 Dreamliners landing every day. 1 Canberra added every year. When's it going to stop?
Around the population of Hobart in 6 months, 1 Canberra every year. Wow. You would think that it's a reasonable question to ask when the number of people arriving to live in your country in the past 6 months is roughly equal to 1% of the entire population of the country. In fact, you'd think it might be a question that the national broadcaster should be asking in all seriousness. You might think it's a question that the ABC should be having actual, proper, serious debates on, balanced, sensible debates, instead of just smugly implying that to question excessively high levels of immigration is somehow evil and racist rather than just normal and sensible. But oh no, don't expect your billion-dollar national broadcaster to be that objective or self-aware.
So enthused by his Dreamliner analogy, Fordham continued taking to the sky.
Oh, you smug, patronising, condescending, self-righteous, ego-inflated...
Over on Adelaide's 5AA, Graham Goodings was also rather fond of Fordham's clever airliner device.
Dreamliner after Dreamliner, jumbo jet after jumbo jet flying into this country. In every 3 years, another city the size of Adelaide, effectively.
Worse still, his fellow presenter warned these people might be diseased.
We don't know their vaccination history.
No.
So if they haven't had the measles or the chicken pox or whatever the case might be, there's a potential that that virus comes into our country
Right-wing lobby group Advance used an AI-generated video to finesse the point.
1,544 new migrants every single day.
1,544 more people who need housing.
1,544 more people competing for jobs and schools.
Ah, memories of the campaign for Brexit.
What? Brexit? What the... By the way, that sickeningly patronising, badly acted voiceover there on the Advance Australia clip that they showed was not from Advance Australia, of course. It was from the ABC's Media Watch people. I used to work at the ABC. The way this normally plays out behind the scenes goes something like this. Hey, any of you guys want to jump in and do a smug, condescending, shouty voiceover to make fun of the political centre and ordinary Australians' worldview? It's fun. We've been doing it exactly the same way on Media Watch for about 40 years now. The joke never gets old. Believe me, guys, it's getting old. Here's a clue, Media Watch producers. The voice of mockery doesn't work when the facts and the data are actually correct and the assertions being made are fair. But that didn't stop Media Watch trying to muddy the waters with some good old polemic propaganda of their own.
So where did the $1,500 a day figure come from? Best we can see, it came courtesy of the Institute of Public Affairs, a conservative think tank which 11 days ago warned Australia's economy was being pummeled by excessive migration.
Ah, yes, of course. It came from the conservative think tank, the Institute of Public Affairs, those evil right-wingers who are all, right-wingy and everything. Boo, hiss. Except, as you know already, it didn't. Remember? It came from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. NPLT was 279,000 the 6 months leading up to June 30, which is 1,544 per day. But maths is not the ABC's strong point. Just as well, they're funded by taxpayers, or they'd never survive. Now, here's where the Media Watch report gets very, very funky indeed. Watch this next bit with a critical eye. And we'll explain in a moment what spin they're putting on it and what they seem to have accidentally left out.
All on the basis of data published by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. But most inconvenient for the media was this little disclaimer from the Bureau.
This data does not reflect the official ABS definition of migration and may lead to inaccurate interpretations.
And?
Should not be used as a measure of overseas migration.
Which the IPA did attempt to explain, and which the ABS also tried to drive home when it contacted those journalists so dazzled by the IPA's glittering calculations, before straightening out the record itself.
Multiple media stories have been published this week using overseas arrivals and departures data, which may lead to inaccurate conclusions on migration.
In fact, there are reliable migration numbers laying about. And what do they show?
Over the 12 months to 31st of December 2024, net overseas migration was estimated at 341,000, a decrease of 190,000, 36%.
Which paints a somewhat different picture, no?
No, it doesn't. Sorry. It paints exactly the same picture. The decrease is off an historically high base, something you guys just accidentally left out there. The fact is that we have too much too fast immigration in Australia, something the ABC simply does not ever want to even discuss, let alone admit. They want you to ignore the facts and focus only on the minutiae of whether the evil non-left-wing media are getting the numbers perfectly right. Well, we are getting the numbers right. The NPLT numbers are a powerful indicator of migration trends, even though they might not be super precise about exactly who is coming. But maybe the Media Watch kiddies don't know that the NPLT number is a commonly used early indicator. Oh no, they know.
And while, yes, the data has been used as an indicator of long-term migration trends, the experts we spoke to assured us that rather than being overwhelmed by migrants, in fact, we're getting fewer.
It is our expectation that net overseas migration will continue to fall when the next round of numbers is published in September.
We asked Ben Fordham about the figures and sadly we didn't hear back. On his show this morning, however, he insisted that even if the real numbers were lower, concerns about migration remain valid. With his guest, the economist Leith Van Onselen, explaining,
they're not perfect, they're not as accurate as the official numbers, but we use them all the time because we have to.
Yeah, and we have to use them because, frankly, the ABS data is as confusing as all get out because they muddy it trying to get a clean measure of how many actual new migrants are coming into Australia is hard. The number the ABS and ABC prefer to use is the net overseas migration number, or NOM. The NOM is the number of immigrant arrivals minus the number of immigrant departures. It measures only people who've changed their usual country of residence for 12 months or more within a 16-month period. It includes non-citizens, such as skilled migrants and students, and Australian citizens who might be moving back home after living more than a year overseas. So given that is the number that the government is telling us we must look at, even though it's imperfect for our purposes really, let's see if we're being evil right-wing racist alarmists for questioning increases in immigration. Before the COVID debacle, Australia had net overseas migration of just under 250,000 a year. You could argue that in itself is high. Not many countries take in 1% of their population every year. Only Canada and Germany beat us, and the UK and US are well below that level. In the COVID years, this dropped significantly to an average of 93,000 a year. And in the 3 years since COVID, it's been huge. 1 million in the first 2 years of the Albanese government and an estimated 340,000 this year. These are financial years, by the way, so 2025 ended June 30, but the number isn't finalised yet. So why isn't the ABC focused on the many issues that come with this, if this is the preferred measure that they want to use? Instead of scolding the rest of the media for reporting the trends, how about you doing your damn job, ABC, and facilitating a sensible national debate on the issue? Oh no, better to moralise from on high like a supercilious posturing elitist.
Because while immigration is an important public debate, it's also freighted with emotion, not least because the fear of foreigners is as old as time and too often has been drawn upon by outlets thirsting for audience.
Right. So the answer to that problem, the answer to the fact that debates about immigration will actually bring out actual racists, is to have a sensible debate, to enable the 99% of mainstream, normal, intelligent, non-racist Aussies like us, many of us immigrants and the descendants of immigrants ourselves, to discuss the matter. And the ABC is failing in its duty to do that. They would prefer to just mock and ridicule and dismiss the many, many Australians who are asking the very valid questions about the state of our country, our culture, and our economy, and whether immigration at these levels is actually healthy. There's nothing racist about that. So our message to the ABC, we're paying you. Do your damn jobs properly. Did you know that with a virtual private network or VPN on your computer, tablet or phone, you can log into your favourite streaming services like Netflix from home with an internet address from anywhere in the world and watch all the shows that they offer in other countries, including stuff in different languages. And using a VPN to route all your internet traffic through a third-party server means that big corporations and big government can't spy on you. If you sign up now with private internet access, we think they're the best VPN servers out there, as a viewer of the other side, you can get 83% off the price of your subscription and get online for less than $3 a month. Check it out right now. Go to piavpn.com/otherside. That's piavpn.com/otherside. It's a great service, a rock bottom price, and supporting our sponsor, you are helping to keep the other side going and growing. Marches have been organised for every capital city in Australia this Sunday against mass immigration. People will also be showing up, no doubt, just to counter those other protests of people waving foreign flags that we've seen recently. They've been embraced by the radical left, which, when you think about it, is a bit weird, kind of like chickens campaigning for KFC. But anyway, This weekend's marches will no doubt attract those who are just fed up with the left generally, and to demonstrate to politicians that not all Aussies think the same way. Now, obviously, any anti-immigration march will attract some unsavoury racists and the usual neo-Nazis, both the real ones, all 24 of them, and the dress-up ones, who the left like to send in to make the right look racist. It'll all be happening, and the media will lap it all up. Ordinary Aussies who just don't want massive immigration will be called racists and Nazis, and libertarians will get lumped in with sovereign citizen nutters, as the left enjoys its smug game of painting everybody who disagrees with them far-right crazy. The radical left-wing nutters, the Antifa crowd, will also no doubt show up and try to stir up a bit of violence. Hopefully they'll fail. They'll probably be doing the Nazi dress-ups too. Should be an absolute hoot. But the fact is, for us, poor ordinary Aussies stuck in the middle of all of this bloody nonsense, immigration really is at levels that we've never seen before. And it really is not even the slightest bit racist to want to talk about it. Before COVID, net overseas migration was just under 250,000 a year. I should also mention that before Kevin 07 and his love for a big Australia, our net migration had been around 100,000 a year for decades. In the COVID years, it dropped back to that level, an average of 93,000 a year. And in the 3 years since COVID, a big spike. 1 million in the first 2 years of the Albanese government and an estimated 340,000 for 2025. But is this NOM figure truly the best indicator of the impact of immigration? Since a lot of the impact of immigration is cultural and social, doesn't it actually matter if the people who are coming are from like-minded cultures? Or is it racist to say that? Does a person's level of willingness to assimilate matter? A person's willingness to accept that the country they're coming to has a culture of its own, established for centuries, that they must try to adapt to before they start trying to shape? My heritage is Irish on one side and Lebanese on the other. The Irish are more recent arrivals, but my Lebanese side goes back more than a century, as does federal MP Bob Katters. Bob is one of the few politicians to come out and urge people to go to the march on Sunday. At a news conference in Brisbane Thursday to promote the march, he kind of lost the plot a bit at a journalist who tried to play the lefty racism card. You've got a Lebanese background, Bob. How can you possibly be against mass immigration? Well, Bob's 80, a man of a different time. He wasn't having any of it, and his Irish-Lebanese temper got the better of him.
The gloves are coming right off now.
And they were.
Bob, you've got Lebanese heritage yourself. What would you...
Oh, mate, don't say that, because that irritates me, and I punch blokes in the mouth for saying that. Don't you dare say that.
The question from Nine reporter Josh Bavis was about the benefits of migrants with good values, families like the Katters, as described by Bob's sister.
My grandfather, Jiddi we called him, came from Lebanon when he was in his early teens.
And echoed by his son.
Has some Irish heritage and some Lebanese heritage, both were chased out of their countries at the time.
My family have been in this country for 140 years, right? So if you say anything like that, I have on many occasions punched blokes in the mouth, right? So I'm restraining myself today.
But he didn't restrain himself for long.
Don't say that. I'm sure that don't say that because you're a racist. You're a racist. You cannot say what you've just said without being identified as a racist.
Okay, we Irish Lebanese, we have a little bit of a spicy ethnic mix. Bob Katter getting a little excited there. Immigration levels are simply too high, and this is the debate that we need to have. And we can't have it if the lovies at the ABC and in the Labor movement on the left generally keep saying that it's racist to have it. It isn't. It's bloody important, because if you don't have it, you will get actual racists emerging, actual racism, actual race violence, and actual neo-Nazis. Just take a look at the UK and Europe. Joining me to discuss all of this on our panel this week is, right here with me in the studio, the founder of the National Conservatives Institute of Australia, Mr. Dan Ryan, and esteemed lawyer. And we also have on the line from Sydney, our good mate from Turning Point Australia, the host of the ARC podcast, Joel Jammal. Joel, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so despite what the ABC might think, it is important that we have a national debate about immigration. Before we get into talking about the march, Dan, if I could just start with you. Are Aussies worrying too much about immigration? Is this all a big beat up, or are there real problems that we're facing, do you think?
Well, the figures show that the numbers of immigrants that have come to Australia are unprecedented in recent times. They're large even by the standards of other European and Western countries. So in the UK, they complain about, and there have been protests there about mass immigration over the last couple of years. Well, our numbers are higher or comparable in many cases. So it's perfectly natural that there would be a public reaction against that. Polls have consistently shown that Australians are against mass immigration, and the protests, which no doubt we'll talk about, I think are a reflection of that there's been a failure from the political class to appropriately respond to these legitimate concerns.
Yeah, I think just in the research that we were doing for the show, we found that we're well above, on a per capita basis, the UK and the US, like well above. And only Canada and Germany have more immigration per capita than Australia does on that net migration level. Joel, just initially your thoughts. I mean, you've been moving in circles in Sydney around this debate and discussion for quite some time. Tell us a little bit about the mood down there and just what people's perception is, you think, of where we're at in terms of immigration and the impact it's having on Sydney as a big city.
Yeah, look, Sydney and really Australia as a whole has one of the highest per capita in the world. I mean, we're the last census 2021, I do believe it was 30% foreign born in Australia and over 50% either foreign born or the children of immigrants as well. And so the real thing we've got here is a situation where there's a lot of Australians where it's gone too fast. People clearly aren't integrating. They're clearly not integrating. And you might say, well, look, the children of immigrants do. Sometimes they don't, and very often they don't, and it's becoming a bit of the norm now. And so me, as you know, as an Australian, if your eyes are closed and my eyebrows weren't betraying me, you'd be like, oh, this guy sounds like an Aussie. He's an Aussie bloke. And then you open your eyes and you're like, oh, okay, he's integrated. His grandfather came out some 60 years ago, and he's actually integrated in Australian society. One of the problems we've got now is we've got kids being born in Australia that are in these enclaves and they're not integrating. They're not learning the language. They're not learning our actual values. And they're not protecting Western philosophy and ideals and Christianity, which made Australia so great. And now we're in a situation where, I mean, in my case, my bishop was stabbed by a 15-year-old Muslim kid who clearly didn't integrate. He was born here. It's homegrown terrorism, and nothing's been done about it. And so when I look at what's going on in this country and when I raise these issues in front of people like Abby Chatfield on the SBS debate, they're just like, how is immigration affecting you? It's like, I appreciate that.
We don't mention people like Abby Chatfield on this show, Joel. We just ignore them because that's what they deserve to be. They deserve to be ignored. But anyway, no, that's not true. Okay, Dan. So really, it comes back to the question of culture as well as numbers, right? I mean, it's really about degree, and I think what Joel's saying, and I would agree, is certainly from my ancestors, and I'm sure Bob Catter is a walking example of this. That previous immigrants to Australia did tend to immigrate a heck of a lot more and were smaller in number, of course, appreciated the society more, were more likely to be of a culturally similar background. And we do have to be able to have that conversation. It isn't racist to talk about cultural similarities, right? And the need for that.
Not at all. But the numbers are the essence. I mean, a smaller number of people who come from a different culture can be more integrated more easily. A larger number is much more difficult, right? I mean, Australia has a magic. It is a very attractive culture. We have been able to do that to a certain extent in the past, but there are obviously limits to that. And the numbers are it's come down to it. They have been very, very large. And what is the Australian public meant to do in those circumstances where, on a bipartisan basis, mass immigration has continued for such a long period of time? And there are economic consequences, there are social consequences, and there are political consequences too. I mean, they're changing the nature of electorates as well. So in those circumstances, we can have cultural debates and everything else, but and work on integration strategies. But the most important thing is to stop the numbers.
On the show this week,
everything becomes easier. The numbers are smaller.
So let's have a look at some numbers now. Some more numbers. We looked at the NPLT in the previous segment on the show this week. We looked at net overseas migration in this segment just now. Let's have a look at what that net overseas migration is made up of. This is arrivals by visa and citizenship type for 23-24 financial year. Temporary visa holders, approximately 465,000. Permanent, 91,000. Australian citizens, 60,000. New Zealand citizens, yay, 51,000. We love our Kiwi friends. But yeah, temporary visa holders is 465,000. Now, that's people who've not lived in Australia ever, or at least have been away quite a while, and are saying when they come in that they intend to live here or live here again. So 465,000 temporary long-term visa holders. That is quite a lot. How does that break down? Let's have a look at this chart. So this is that temporary long-term visa arrival group. We've got international students, 207,000. Working holiday, 80,000. Temporary skilled visas, 49,000. And visitors, long-term visitors, obviously, these people are going to say they're going to stay for a while, 90,000. Won't most of these people eventually go home, though? Dan?
Well, I mean, our population increase over the last 10 years has been, I think it's been record-breaking compared to our other Western countries.
Yeah.
So no, they don't. I mean, they become citizens in many cases. They form part of the population growth of the Australian nation.
Yeah. So even those students that are coming just for a few years, a lot of them stay, right?
A lot of them transfer. They convert their visa in due course. They get a job. They get sponsorship. They ultimately get a path to citizenship here. That's I would argue one of their primary motivations in many cases.
Right. And before the ABC people called you racist for saying that, let me just point out, look at the numbers, look at the population increase, and look at the birth rates, right? The population increase is coming from somewhere. Okay?
See, an important stat, Damien, is even during the baby boom, during the famous Italian and Greek immigration after the Second World War, that the population growth then of Australia, only a third of that was because of migration, because we had a big baby boom at the same time.
Ah, yes, right.
So that's very different to today, where we have very, very low fertility rates.
Very
we
low,
have our population primarily driven by this massive migration from.
Well, I actually think one of the most important statistics, which again the left would like to ignore, is this the statistic that Joel was mentioning, which is the number of people that are born here. And what were those numbers again? Was it for Sydney, Joel, the 50% foreign born?
Well, look, nationwide, it's 30% foreign born as of 2021, the census. It's more like 32%, 33% now foreign born nationally. They say that's generally equivalent across every state, across every city, but I don't believe that. I believe in Sydney and Melbourne it is a lot higher. And the children of immigrants is over 50%. If you include immigrants, so foreign-born people, as well as their children, it is over 50%. Like, this nation is rapidly changing. I don't think people appreciate how quickly it's changing, and it's too quick. You're going to lose like the Aussie accent, just like what's happened to the UK, the Cockney accent. It's basically going extinct, and these are sad things, because it's also our values we're losing as well. That actual freedom to understand how society works and exactly how this delicate balance works, and that is really a blip in history, and that's why foreigners like my parents appreciated that, valued that, and insisted that their children also be integrated into that.
Yeah, and there was also a sense of gratitude among those previous generations of immigrants as well for being to be here. I was certainly raised with those values. All right. Let's talk about the march, the dreaded marches, because it has divided the Conservative community, and you guys have got slightly different views on how to approach this. I'm getting a feeling that there's a bit of a different vibe in Brisbane to Sydney and Melbourne on this. But anyway, we'll let people make their own minds up. The march is happening around the country Sunday afternoon. For some people who are watching this, of course, it'll be after Sunday afternoon. It might have already happened, so you'll know more than we do. But let's just firstly talk about Joel, you've sort of been in the middle of this. Topher Field has come out very strongly from Melbourne and said, look, people shouldn't go to this march. It's a trap. It's being run by neo-Nazis. It's not just that neo-Nazis might show up, it's that it's actually being run by neo-Nazis, and we'll have some counters to that claim in a moment. But just tell us where you're at now, Joel, on this, and what the latest info is that you found out.
Look, I've been utterly consistent from the start with this. I've said I can't get behind any rally in the last 5 years where I haven't known the speakers. I can't pick up the phone and speak to the organisers in every state. Unfortunately, that level of transparency hasn't existed with this rally. There's still, even now, we don't even know who's speaking as of this filming right now, who is speaking in 48 hours. We have no idea. And this is the problem I have. It's like, I don't do blank checks, and people in my audience don't either. And if there's one thing that I know is my job over the last 5 years, it's to help replace the media, who were the guardians of democracy. They would provide reliable information to the Australian public to make informed decisions. That's what I'm doing. And everything I've said on this rally has been the truth. I said the organisers had people involved that actually incited violence, and that is exactly what happened with Beck Wilson. She acknowledged and admitted on Ben Fordham and apologised for inciting violence. So I was right to do what I did. She admits that. And so going into it, I've given people the liberty to make the decision themselves. If you want to go to this rally, God bless you. So that's why it's a beautiful country. It's a free country. But I will personally not be attending, but I will be doing a national stream to show you everything that's happening in each city.
Okay, so the fact, because my view is that, if neo-Nazis or you have an anti-immigration rally, whether it's anti-mass immigration or whatever, you're going to get neo-Nazis, you're going to get racists show up, just like you're going to get Antifa show up, and you're probably going to get Antifa show up at a left-wing rally, the radical left. But, what can you do about it? I mean, you've still got to go ahead and have your rallies, haven't you?
Look, if the organisers put down what they were doing right now and they didn't show up, people would still turn up because they're not rocking up for the Nazis. They're rocking up because Australia's broken. These guys have just happened to come along. They happen to be the first in, best dressed, put their hand up, made a website and said, March for Australia. We're going to collect your emails. We're going to collect donations in the early days of this, but we're not going to tell you what it's for. We're not going to tell you what we're going to do after the 31st of August. We're not even going to tell you who's going to speak at the rally. That's my problem. I don't do blank checks.
Okay.
And the real issue is there are genuine issues with immigration. And if you don't show transparency on this issue, you will be picked apart by the psychological operations, by exactly what the media is trying to toe. And that's what we're seeing with this whole sovereign citizen thing. Just last night, Channel 7, Channel 10, Channel 9, all talking about the dangers of sovereign citizens and how they might hijack this rally in the weekend, because we've had that shooting in Victoria in the last week of someone who said he was many things, one of which being a sovereign citizen and an anti-vaxxer. So the media focuses in on that and starts talking about the issues of this rally.
Yeah, it's always the extreme thing. If you care about liberty and freedom, the freedom movement is now everyone's a sovereign citizen. Anybody who opposes having a vaccine that's wasn't tested is an anti-vaxxer. Everybody who turns up at an anti-immigration march is a neo-Nazi. I mean, it's pathetic, but I think most Australians see through it. And anyway, so I do think there's a divide between Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane. On the Brisbane front, Scott Challen, who's a friend of this show, Shallow Chow online, he posted, or he's posting this, I think, soon. He's given us this as an exclusive to play, but this is Scott Challen's view. He's one of the organisers of the march in Brisbane, definitely not a neo-Nazi, but have a look at this.
I found out who's organising the March for Australia on August the 31st in Queensland. You're not going to believe this. The mainstream media's had an absolute field day trying to pull this thing apart. And they're calling everybody racists and they're carrying on like chooks with their heads chopped off. But we know what's going on here. There's events happening in every capital city around Australia, as well as a whole bunch of regional areas. This thing is going to be bigger than Ben-Hur. But who is it that's been organising it in Queensland? Have a look at this rabble. Bender, Spambot X, lead organiser, Lachlan Lade, Libertarian President of Queensland, Oz Integrity, he's one of the leaders as well. Lady B, she's been all over this organising it. The Dusty Bogan, the McMullen, and oh my God, if you look at the bottom of the screen, it says Shallow Chell. That's it. I'm one of the organisers in Queensland. I have been involved in getting this thing happening. And guess what? I couldn't be prouder.
So, Dan, what's your take on it? Do you think that people should just go along anyway, drown out any neo-Nazis that might be there and just get on with making the point that everybody wants to make?
Mass immigration has been too high for so many years in Australia. The political class on a bipartisan basis have refused to do anything about it. In those circumstances, the public protests, right? What has been disappointing that there hasn't been a protest organised by someone else prior to it, right? So this has arisen. It will be the first of many protests in Australia on this issue, because that is exactly what we've seen overseas in the UK, where there have been protests on mass immigration and a whole host of things. It's not going away. What I think should happen is it should be further legitimised by having like the opposition leader of spokesperson for immigration at a state and federal level, and a whole host of other people come out and drown out whatever fringe elements might want to be associated with it.
Is this part of the problem? The fact that we don't have a strong conservative voice in this country putting the sensible position, and therefore all of these radical nutters can come in and sort of stuff everything up.
It's the default position amongst many of the legacy right across the Western world has been to say, "Oh, it's terrible. Oh, we treasure our different communities." It's a morally
the conservatives in the UK and the traditional Republicans, and
exactly. Yep. It's a morally printing position. I'm so great because I'm tolerant, and they never
pass the wine and cheese, darling.
Exactly, because they never see the consequences of it. They never feel the consequences of the economic or other social consequences. Yeah. So it's a morally reprehensible position to take, which is why there's been such dramatic political consequences, most famously with the Tory party in the UK, who failed to take action when more people emigrated to the UK in the last 20 years than in the last 2,000 years. And the Tories were in power for 12 of those years. In those circumstances, unless you come out strongly against mass immigration and commit to do something about it and not adopt this sort of pose, your party will suffer electoral consequences.
The party, the Liberal Party in Australia, now down to about 29%. The coalition on the polls, probably 21 of that for the Liberals and 8 for the Nationals, but it's pretty dramatic. And in the UK, we're seeing Nigel Farage's Reform Party now in the high 30s in the polls, and the Tories, the Conservative Party, at 17%. Why aren't the Liberal Party getting the damn message?
You see in the UK now amongst some of the senior Tory leadership far stronger rhetoric on immigration than you see in Australia. And I just plead with some of the people in the Liberal Party that this is a winning electoral issue. This is a morally right issue to get those numbers down. It's important for social cohesion. It's important so their kids can get jobs and houses in the future. You have to grab this by the nettle and take a serious position of it. And you can't default to this sort of, I call it, Malcolm Turnbull or David Cameron-esque type of position where you rock along to a multicultural event. And God bless them all. We're all friendly with a whole lot of different people. But you're avoiding the main point.
The Labor Party said in Queensland, this sort of thing, about the march this is, by the way, this sort of thing doesn't belong in Australia. What sort of thing? What sort of thing? A protest against mass immigration doesn't belong in Australia? And to his credit, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due, the Premier of Queensland, the only Liberal Party, National Party leader in the country in a mainland state, a majority government, David Crisafulli, said he will not condemn this march. So he's starting to stand up against that pressure to
well done. Cave. And God forbid that there's any unsavoury scenes, and everyone should protest peacefully and all the rest of it. But this is the biggest issue in Australia today, mass immigration. Yeah. This is the first protest which has come about, somewhat organically, but it really should have been mainstream figures on the right and across the country that have come out, TV personalities, whole ABC presenters. They should have all said, look, the mainstream parties on the Labor and Liberal side are not doing enough on this. Something needs to be done because it's affecting the nature of the country, both economic and socially. And so where no action is taken at a political level on a bipartisan basis, you get public protests.
Yeah, and you might see violence, and the media will focus on that and say, oh, look at the neo-Nazis and what they did, and look at all these violent people and these terrible protests.
Obviously we condemn.
Which is obviously Joel's concern as well. Joel, how much do you think there might be violence at these marches?
I haven't been worried about this for 3 years, and I'm not sleeping well this week. I was sleeping just fine 2 weeks ago when I raised this as a problem, but the timing of this sovereign citizen thing spooks me, and I don't think people fully appreciate what their governments are capable of. When it comes to what's happened in the last week or two on the sovereign citizens thing, Four Corners has never really covered sovereign citizens, yet they put out nearly an hour doco early last week about them. And then a shooting happens in Victoria, which they blame on a sovereign citizen. The last one that happened was late 2022, so it doesn't happen very often. And then it's all leading into this rally on Sunday, which again, we don't know a lot of information about. I don't have faith in these protest organizers who don't have a good track record, by the way. There's no track record for a lot of them. And I'm not talking about Shallow Gal. I'm a fan of his. He's great. I love the other organizers he mentioned there. I'm friends with them. It's Melbourne and Sydney, mate. You have no idea what you're talking about in Melbourne and Sydney. You don't know how many members of NSN there are. You don't know what they've got planned for the next 3 to 5 years. That's the reality I'm dealing with. Now, I'm not tarring the whole rally. 99% of the people that are going to rock up are just fine. They're beautiful people. But the thing is, if you're not transparent about who's speaking at this damn rally and who's articulating the issues there in Sydney and Melbourne specifically.
But who cares? We should go and make it our rally, shouldn't we? Shouldn't ordinary Australians go and make it their rally and just wash out the NSN and all these neo-Nazis and tell them to get stuffed?
It's a logistical problem, Damien. It's a logistical problem. Now, there is no one that's thrown their name in this whole protest thing that has been at the head of a 50,000 person march where no leader showed up, where no plan was set up. I've been at that.
Right.
The town hall speech on the 24th of July 2021. It's terrifying.
Okay.
There was violence, and I had to put down my journalist cap, and I had to articulate a message to the crowd. I wasn't meant to be the speaker. There were no speakers planned, so they just violently started shutting down the city and clashing with police because police were arresting people. It's terrifying.
Okay.
And
So your point is it could just get ugly because it's disorganised. Sorry to cut you off, mate. I get that point. I've just got to move on because we are out of time and I want to get this clip of Bob Katter in. Here's Bob Katter on the march itself. Let's have a look at that.
Mr Katter had gathered with members of his party in Brisbane promoting the March for Australia. Its website lists 2 goals: no foreign flags and an end to mass migration.
If you have anti-Australian sentiments, then get the hell out of my country. Because we are taking the names down now of anyone that treats our flag badly.
Okay, now he refers to the people behind the website. Who are the people behind the website, Joel? Do you know who they are, or is that the organisers?
I won't say their names, but I know the people that were behind the website. Yeah.
Okay, so that website is the extreme right, is the neo-Nazi leaning or extreme right?
Actually, those guys are very lovely people.
Okay, right.
But then they're not the ones picking the speakers, and that's the problem.
Oh, they're not the ones picking. Oh God, it's a mess, isn't it?
No, and this is the thing. People don't. And again, we've only got 20 minutes here. I got to the bottom of this 3 weeks ago, and I told them you need to be more public about the information because there are nefarious figures involved. And the problem is people are going to rock up, a lot of people, probably more than the Palestine protest in Sydney. And they're going to rock up, and they're going to look for a stage, and they're going to look for Beck, and that's going to be, you can't just take it over. There's only one stage. No one else is setting one up, last I checked. And so they are controlling the speakers on the day. They are the ones setting up. And that's why they need to be more transparent about who's speaking in every city.
All right. Well, we have, I think a lot of valid points there. We've discussed both sides of the situation. I guess it's up to you folks, what people want to do. Any
Obviously, peaceful protests are the way to go, but it's a legitimate issue. And I just say to people, if you want to organise a better protest on this, tell us how it should be run, because this will be the first of, I think, many. And obviously, I'm not a neo-Nazi, you're not a neo-Nazi, and the rest of it. People I know that are associated with it are not neo-Nazis. So at some point, what type of protest against mass immigration can be held in Australia without attracting
Probably I think Joel's saying
allegation.
a more organised one.
Well, it hasn't been done yet. Why hasn't it been done today? There was the opportunity to do so.
There's one happening in a couple of weeks because of what's happened with this protest. It's on the 13th. It's partnered up with the Worldwide Rally Freedom. Tommy Robinson's doing one on the same day in the UK. Against mass immigration is what he's doing it on. And in Australia, it's on various issues, including immigration. They've made a bid for the Harbour Bridge. That's how you protest. If you're not sure what you're doing, look at the left, look at how they do it, and do the same.
Yeah, all right. So September 13, Joel, September 13 is the next date. You can go to that if you don't want to go on Sunday, or you can go on Sunday if you feel comfortable doing that.
Go to both. Go to both.
Go to both.
Go to
either. Go to one or the other.
God bless you guys.
All right, mate. Thanks so much for joining us, Joel. We really appreciate it. Joel Jammal from the ARC and Turning Point Australia, and Dan Ryan from the National Conservative Institute. Websites and all their contact details are on the screen. And that is it for our episode of The Other Side this week. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to get onto our website at othersidetv.com.au, othersidetv.com.au, and support the show. Or you can support us right on YouTube by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button. If you haven't already clicked the subscribe button, well, you got to click that one as well, but get onto that. All right, I'm Damien Curry. We'll catch you next week. Bye for now.
The Other Side with Damien Curry is Australia's best independent news commentary show, bringing you up to speed on the issues that matter most. Simply subscribe for free on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button and bell, so you'll be notified whenever we post anything. And to really stay in touch, check out our independent website at othersidetv.com.au. You can sign up for free there too, or join the exclusive side and help support our show for less than $5 a month.